Ой, я же что это не сделал. Ну, короче, да. Моя версия такая. Святость – это дело, это действие. То есть, как бы, какое еще действие, да? Действие – это когда у тебя голова, понимаешь, да. То есть, оно от головы начинаться должно. Ну, наверное, даже не от головы, как-то, да, то есть, не смирение, чего-то, желание, стремление, видение, возможно. Да. В том числе талант, который тебе, наверное, да. Сам себе место общества не нашел, наверное. Да. Ладно. Да. А не надо отдыхать, знаешь, чем тебе это? Может быть и так, да. Но пока не в делах, так скажем, да, денег не дают, ну, собственно, дают, но как бы, да, не замут, вот то, что я сейчас сижу, ну, кстати, может, это, ну, как, ну, ладно. Музыканты, как верно, солистами деньги никто не платит, не собирается. Так уж, скажем, не просто так уж. Вот это уже хорошо. И человек, а Ференс из чего говорил про деньги? Да, то есть как деньги это служение миру, да, презренным никуда от них не денешься. Не надо, и более того, не надо же. Ну да. Просто что больше было, говорит, да. Ну, да, Я не знаю, как бизнес работает. Как бизнес работает? Вот по идее сейчас я что должен? Угождать. Я сейчас должен что-то делать стандартное. Ну, типа там обучала, как-то там. Ну, да. Да, типа того. Тогда чем я заниматься-то буду? Все, я буду ходить им заниматься, нахера мне это понимаете? И оказывается, одно другое вроде как и занимает даже. Ну, ладно. Ну, наверное, что хочешь сказать, что продвигать себя как музыкант, это не может быть. Ну, наверное, будет. Слушать мне искать поклонников, чтобы было на что жить, чтобы музыка давала деньги. Не образование, не обучение, это не знаю. Образование же используется. Ну там понятно, что само есть исполнительство. Ладно, хорошо. Что-то я опять мертвых вещей. Нет, ничего, я не понимаю. Так бизнес же те же самые дела делать, только государство говорит, надо делать. Ну ладно. Это свободное оформление? Да. Чего я боюсь? Я боюсь прожить как изгой. Короче, вот так. Сейчас. Да. Ну ладно, не надо. То же самое. То же самое. конечно, жалкий мужчина. У меня жены нету. Денег у меня с гулькин нос. На шее родителей еще нет. Прожиточный. Не надо тут ну, то есть, ну, беги куда-нибудь зарабатывать. Не про то речь. Ну, посмотри, это не важно, так оно и есть. Потому что, да, ну как ты будешь гордиться собой? Работаешь в Макдональдсе или какой-нибудь там. Как это опасно гордиться собой, когда у тебя вообще когда ты никто вообще. Ну, хорошо. Можно и так. Просто, ну, не опасно, ладно, нормально. Ну, хорошо. Все хорошо, значит, я ничего не понимаю. Ну, Штуки.
Что-то горит.
Понял, ставь. Что у нас тут есть? Что-то холодало вообще даже как-то. Что-то как-то вообще холодало. О, обдул, подмог, подмог. Нет. Дал меня. Дал меня. Мутку, мутку, шмутку. Мы с нами. Что это творится? Ладно, что там вообще такая штука? Да. Так будет. Пуди. Ксмас.
Krishna. Кино. Кино. Точно. Мишкана. Видишь? Видишь? Черный, черный. Как все играет? Как все?
few videos that you might have already seen. If not, I'm going to link them in the description box down below. That there are some exercises that I do every day. I practice scales in general every single day, sometimes more, sometimes less. I have a couple of exercises that I do every day just because I think it is one of those things that have to be automatic. And I practice different keys every day, so I don't get used to just one particular pattern, but to all the different keys that there are. But there are a couple more exercises, and in today's video, I'm going to go a little more in depth into the exercises that I used to do, especially when I was younger, in order to feel very comfortable while playing scales.
If you want to lead something, start by saying, this is what I care about. This is what I want to do, and why I think you should care about it, and you should want to help. Hardly.
I have 5 exercises that, as I said, I used to do every day. Now I just pick out 1 or 2, depending on how I feel and what needs more exercise in my hand and in my fingers at that particular point in time. But I would definitely recommend doing all of them on a very regular basis, at best daily, if you have the time and if you can afford to do that, because it definitely helps. I also think that when practicing scales, you develop your basic technique. So the way that you practice these very basic exercises and these very basic movements is the way that you're going to be playing a lot of things that are also much harder later on. This is why it is very important, I find, that when practicing the scales, you really look out for your hand posture, your arm posture, if you are feeling tense, if you're feeling relaxed, how you position your fingers, because this is really what's going to determine how your technique is going to develop later on. Also, if you're a beginner, of course you're going to start practicing scales at some point as a warm-up. Again, I would definitely suggest that you look out for your position, how you press the keys, exactly where those pressure points are, just in order to make sure that you develop a very promising and good and reliable technique that can take you very far later on in your channel career or channel life. So let's get into the exercises. Today, just to demonstrate, I'm going to use the C major scale just to keep it very simple, but of course these exercises apply to any scale, in any key, and as I said, I alternate keys every day, but today I'm just going to show you the C major version of these exercises. So in the first exercise, you isolate the notes in which the thumb goes under. In the C major scale, that would be E and F, because the fingering that I do is 1, 2, 3, then the thumb on F, and then 1, 4, and then the thumb on C again. So it's B, C, and D, F. So I practice those 2 moments by isolating them and putting my wrist as high as I can without tensing up, and leaving a lot of room for the thumb to be able to go under, and then putting the wrist back down while pressing down the note. Then I add in 1 note before the B, so the A. And then I add in the G as well. And then I play this group of notes back. I do the same for the E and F. And then the same for the left hand. The left hand, it would be A and G, and then B and C. What is important while practicing this exercise is not only that the wrist is completely relaxed and doing this movement of going up and down, but also that
Хватит? Да. Твой подарок. Держи.
It's very important that you wait until your hand is really completely relaxed. I know I keep saying make sure that you're relaxed, but it's really, really essential that you don't even have the tiniest bit of tension, because here, if you have a bit of tension, it doesn't really bother you. It's not such a big obstacle. Of course, you can keep playing, but the point is once you get to the super hard studies and super hard technical moments in concertos, it is going to bother you. So make sure that even with these simple exercises, you have zero amount of tension in order to just not have it later on. So I play the second finger and wait, even if it takes 5 seconds, I just wait until I really feel, okay, everything is released, then I tap the thumb. And then going back down, as you saw, I always stop at the second finger, do the same release, and then play until the next second finger. And I do that, of course, to practice what comes after that, which is the moment where the fingers go over the thumb, going back down. And then I do the same thing for the left hand, vice versa, so going down and upwards. Another thing to look out for when playing that exercise is that the fingers that are not playing, so the thumb is tapping, second one is holding the note, but the other 3 fingers, third, fourth, and fifth are not playing, that they are also completely relaxed, or as my teacher used to say, almost asleep. They're sleeping, only the thumb is awake. And then when you have this fast moment where you're quickly playing until the next second finger, that's the only moment when they're active, and ideally they're only going to be active while playing their key. Of course, this is always something that happens in your mind. Of course, they're going to be also active while the other fingers are playing, but it's good to imagine as minimal action as possible and try to make your fingers be as still as possible when they're not playing, because it also increases your chances of being very relaxed and not tense at all. The next exercise is one where you basically go through one octave of the scale by adding one note. You start out with 2 notes and then add a note each time. Here, once again, I know I might sound a little bit boring saying the same thing all the time, but once again, you only continue when you are completely relaxed. So I start out with 2 notes. Relax, maybe even touch my elbow to make sure. And the same for the next one. And after this exercise, I go on and start playing the full scale. The first way I do that is by tempo or just the 16th notes for 4 octaves. When I play the 1 octave, I make sure to do what I also did for the clusters, really give each note its own impulse, keep very relaxed fingers. Then when I get into the 2, 3, and 4 octaves, I try to focus on being more legato and playing even and as minimal movement as possible. For the clusters, really give each note its own impulse, keep very relaxed fingers. Then when I get into the 2, 3, and 4 octaves, I try to focus on being more legato and playing even and as minimal movement as possible. And then the same for the left hand. I also play the left hand through, going upwards first and then back downwards, as I would when I play both hands together. Now for this last exercise that I just played, I used to put on the metronome in order to increase the tempo slowly. So for example, I would start with 120 and then go to 160, not in one day, but within, let's say, months, as you feel comfortable. So this was kind of a medium tempo that I just showed you, but for me, today, I would play it in this tempo. But again, it's not about playing it fast immediately. This is obviously a process that takes time, and increasing the tempo as the weeks and months progress is basically what got me to playing it this fast now. So after this, I put both hands together and play them up and down, and also going outwards and inwards again. But again, it's not about playing it fast immediately. This is obviously a process that takes time, and increasing the tempo as the weeks and months progress is basically what got me to playing it this fast now. So after this, I put both hands together and play them up and down, and also going outwards and inwards again. I hope that you enjoyed this more in-depth video about scales specifically. As I said in the beginning, this is not the only warm-up thing that I do on a daily basis. I usually reduce the exercises for the scales a little bit, and also do some arpeggios, some chords, some general warming up and stretching exercises for my hands. But when I really want to focus on scales, this is what I do. And it works in every key. And I would really recommend doing these exercises if you're interested in building up a secure and very reliable technique as a base. I really hope that you found this video helpful and that you can find ways to improve your skills with these exercises. Let me know what you think in the comments down below, and I'll see you again in the next one. Bye.
I'm going to share with you what I intended to say if I had been elected in 2016.
Grade 5 Oral Section B. You're going to have a list of notes to sing, and first of all you'll get the key chord and the starting note. You'll be able to see the notes, but if you just sing them in the bar's rest before they sound, so you can tell if you got it right or not. Okay, so get ready.
E. Oral Trainer, describing the character of a piece for grades 4 to 8 oral. In this video, you will learn how to describe the character of a piece for grades 4 and above ABRSM oral tests. You will also be required to identify other features such as dynamics, articulation, tempo, and tonality. But these were covered in previous videos. Here, we will concentrate on just the character of the piece. That said, the character of the piece is made by the other features: dynamics, articulation, tempo, and tonality. First of all, let's take a close look at the question you will be asked in the exam, which is, what gives this piece its musical character? This is a two-part question. In other words, you have to describe the character of the piece and say what musical features give the piece that character. If you took a look at the model answers given in sample oral test practice books, every time these above factors, that is, dynamics, articulation, tempo, and tonality, come up as answers for what gives the music its character. For example, this might be a model answer. Staccato notes at a fast tempo, quite loud and in a major key, give this piece a happy, lively character. Next, I will advise that you prepare a few set answers. Don't get caught out on the day trying to think what mood the piece conveys. Most music can fall into a few simple categories. For example, happy, sad, relaxed, intense. And finally, prepare the next question you will be asked, even before the examiner asks it. In grades 4 and 5, you will hear a piece and answer questions about the piece, and then the examiner will play a phrase from the same piece and ask you to clap back the rhythm and state how many beats were in a bar. Now, you could be thinking about how many beats were in a bar on the very first playing, and not wait until the examiner plays it for the last time. So, let's try a few examples. Listen to these short extracts, keeping in mind the musical features of dynamics, articulation, tempo, and tonality, and then describe the character of the piece in terms of these. The fairly fast tempo, frequent use of staccato notes, and the major key give this piece a happy, lively character. Now listen to the second extract.
Amigo.
In this one, the slow tempo, minor key, and legato melody give this piece a sad, melancholy character. And finally, this one. The major key, with a moderately loud legato melody at a medium tempo, gives this piece a calm, lilting character. Now, you should be fully prepared for this section of the oral tests. And if this video has helped in any way, please give it a like and subscribe to stay up to date with future uploads. Thanks for listening.
В новогодние праздники хочется просто подиванить.
Включи гадкие.
Подарите себе отдых с телевизором на платформе Яндекс.ТВ. Покупайте телевизоры с Яндекс.ТВ ДНС.
Ах,
E-oral trainer, recognizing tonality for grades 3 to 8 oral. The new musical feature you are expected to recognize from grade 3 ABRSM oral and upwards, and grade 4 Trinity oral, is that of tonality. In other words, whether a piece is in the major or a minor key. You will also be asked questions on dynamics, articulation, and changes in tempo in grade 3 ABRSM oral, but these have been covered in previous videos, and so only that which is new, i.e. tonality, will be covered in this video. If you want further practice at recognizing dynamics, articulation, and tempo changes, see the links in the description below. To distinguish between major and minor is very simple. Major sounds happy and minor sounds sad. Be careful not to let the tempo confuse you. A major key piece might be at a slow, very relaxed pace, but still have a smile on its face. Similarly, a minor key piece might be fast and lively, but the overall mood is much darker, stormier. So, to practice recognizing
Для тебя я всегда онлайн, только не игнорь и давай позалипай. Лишь ты и я, и нас ничего не парит. Просто напиши мне что-нибудь по фану. Сердечко тук-тук-тук открывай. Хочешь быть со мной, тогда завоевай. Если ты не все.
Добрый вечер. В перевесе в субботу, а в руках у меня расческа. Смотрите, что взяли дальше. Она разломана. И к сегодняшнему 25 декабря, то есть к западному Рождеству, именно эту расческу можно считать подарком от российских ядерщиков и разведчиков. Почему? Почему также это символ одной потрясающей любви, как это и другие главные темы этого года. Ростислав Плят.
Я буду молчать.
Юрий Никулин. Святослав Рихтер. Но кто еще очень необычный жил в этом доме? Кого еще мог здесь видеть? Александр Ширвин.
И один остался, понимаешь? Ты и я.
Только у нас впервые в телеобъективе квартира живших здесь советских разведчиков-нелегалов, добывших атомные секреты. Какая их связана история любви, и что теперь с запущенным с их помощью первым реактором под бомбу. И вот на этом месте мы можем сказать, что ядерной войны не будет. Ну да, конечно, или она будет последней. Так на что намекал президент на пресс-конференции? А он ведь намекал. Сегодняшний первый полет нового российского самолета МС-21 именно с российским композитным крылом, что теперь ждут в Ростехе. И именно сегодня же новый атомный ледокол и новая подлодка генералиссимус Суворов. Куда все это пойдет? Сегодняшняя конвенция от премьер-министра Молдавии. Почему она считает, что переговоры с Россией по газу шли не так, как надо? И что первопроходцы по этому вопросу в Киеве? Сегодняшние украинские ночные телеэфиры. Новость о том, что Киев не собирается нападать на Донбасс. На самом деле, и в чем невольно проговорилось британское министерство обороны. Сегодняшняя история с грузовиками, которые застряли в снежном безмолвии Якутии. Сегодняшнее новое ограничение на музыку в Афганистане. Как только теперь могут ездить в машинах афганские женщины. Сегодня
Hi everybody, this is Danai, and today's video is all about intermediate piano repertoire. I've already made a video on piano technique repertoire that I find very helpful, and also on the, for me, ideal repertoire for beginners when playing the piano. So this video is kind of the next in the series where I chose some pieces that I find are the perfect bridge between the beginner repertoire and the full-on hard pieces that you play as an advanced player. I tried to cover the entire intermediate spectrum, so some pieces are leaning more towards the easier side and some are leaning more towards the harder, almost advanced pieces side. So I hope that you will find something for you in this selection, and if you're interested in that, then keep on watching. So before I get into the video, I just wanted to mention that, as you can probably see from my surroundings, I'm still in Greece. This is my last day in Greece. My festival is over and I stayed here for a couple of days of holiday. And tomorrow I'm going back to Berlin, to my home in Germany. So if there are some sounds from insects or wind, I hope that they won't distract you. So the first piece that I want to mention, or actually the first set of pieces, are Beethoven sonatas. Growing up as a piano student, Beethoven sonatas were a vital core part of my learning, and not only my piano learning and technique, building technique, but also of my understanding and learning of music. My teacher at the time, Professor Kemalin, lay a very big value on learning Beethoven sonatas and really learning this music properly. Learning is a vital core part of my learning, and not only my piano learning and technique, building technique, but also of my understanding and learning of music. My teacher at the time, Professor Kemalin, lay a very big value on learning Beethoven sonatas and really learning this music properly. And I find that very helpful until today, that I learned many Beethoven sonatas when I was young. So I wanted to mention a couple of sonatas that he would always give his younger or youngish students to learn. One of them was Beethoven Opus 2 number 1, which is, I find, a great sonata to start with. It's technically not the easiest, but it is musically, I think, very understandable and a great one to get into the Beethoven sonatas. Another one that you would suggest is Beethoven Sonata Pathétique. The Pathétique is also similar, technically really not too hard. I mean, I'm speaking, of course, compared to the other Beethoven sonatas, and also musically, you can definitely understand it, and a great introduction to Beethoven. The third beginner, let's say, sonata that I would mention is Beethoven Tempest, so Opus 31 number 2, or also Beethoven Opus 10 number 1. I think with either of these four sonatas, I would feel quite secure getting into the world of number 2, or also Beethoven Opus 10 number 1. I think with either of these four sonatas, I would feel quite secure getting into the world of Beethoven sonatas. I would definitely not suggest 10 number 1 Tempest, so Opus 31 number 2, or also Beethoven Opus 10 number 1. I think with either of these four sonatas, I would feel quite secure getting into the world of Beethoven sonatas. I would definitely not suggest to start with one of the late ones. That would be pretty intimidating. So yeah, maybe start with one of those early or middle ones. I think these are great to get into Beethoven and in general to get into that whole period of classical music where it is not anymore Haydn or Mozart. It is already very much Beethoven, but still not the late Beethoven, which is a complete different world in itself. The next set of pieces that I would recommend are Bach pieces, and specifically I would recommend the French suites. I think that these are quote unquote the easiest. Of course, none of Bach pieces are easy, but I think that these are the simplest, the English ones, and the partitas are way more complex. But these ones are pretty doable if you're getting into the world of suites and the different Baroque dances. I think this is a great introduction to that. Or also any prelude and fugue from the well-tempered clavier are a great introduction to this whole polyphonic world. In my beginner repertoire video, I mentioned the inventions and the slightly easier Bach pieces, and I think that once you've already gotten into those, the French suites and the well-tempered clavier are a great continuation of your study of Baroque repertoire. Another Baroque thing that I find a great repertoire piece is any Scarlatti sonata. Scarlatti has written many, many sonatas, so there are many to choose from very easy to very hard. So find one that really fits your level and play it. Not only are they musically so beautiful, and if you play it in a concert or in an exam or anything where you perform, they are so nice to listen to and so much fun to play. But also technically, they work on many different technical areas, so they are very helpful, and you could almost do them instead of a study because they all work on one very piece. Another Baroque thing that I find a great repertoire piece is any Scarlatti sonata. Scarlatti has written many, many sonatas, so there are many to choose from very easy to very hard. So find one that really fits your level and play it. Not only are they musically so beautiful, and if you play it in a concert or in an exam or anything where you perform, they are so nice to listen to and so much fun to play. But also technically, they work on many different technical areas, so they are very helpful, and you could almost do them instead of a study because they all work on one particular technical aspect. So definitely look into the Scarlatti sonata. Moving on from Beethoven, I would suggest a piece by Mendelssohn, and I would suggest the Rondo Capriccioso by Mendelssohn. It is about a 10-minute long piece, and it is one of the classic pieces by Mendelssohn that my former teacher used to give us in order to get introduced into his world. It starts with a slow introduction with a beautiful musical phrase where you can really work on building a phrase, on building the musical side of a, let's say, slow movement. It's just 2 pages. And then comes the fast bit, which sounds very virtuoso, but is not extremely hard. Again, it is definitely not easy, but it is very doable if you're slowly getting into Mendelssohn. So I think this is a very good piece to start with when you want to play something by Mendelssohn and you are an intermediate piano student. Also, you can program it at the end of a concert or at the end of a recital because it has a very virtuoso, beautiful ending that sounds very impressive and that the audience loves. Next, I would like to mention 2 pieces by Robert Schumann. One is the Abegg Variations. I think these are also one of the classic pieces that my teacher used to give us when we were starting out with this composer. They're called Abegg Variations because they are based on a theme of A, B, E, G, G. These are literally the notes. B in German meaning B flat. So it's A, B flat, E, G, G. That's the theme, and then there are variations on that theme. They're very beautiful. They're very, very virtuoso towards the end, but typically Schumann. Never easy to play, but still kind of intermediate level, especially compared to his later pieces. And the other piece by Schumann that I would recommend is Papillon. Papillon is also a variation piece. It means butterfly. Incredibly beautiful, one of his earliest pieces, and also something that I would recommend to study after his album for the youth, which I mentioned in my beginner video. In general, I will definitely link the beginner repertoire and also the piano technique repertoire video that I've already recorded and posted in the description box down below, so you can also check that out. imagine a little fountain and the water droplets dancing around. I think this is kind of what this piece sounds like and what it is supposed to depict. It's very beautiful, and it's definitely an intermediate piece that sounds incredibly nice, that is doable, and that you could program in any program. All these pieces that I'm mentioning are also pieces that you can play as an advanced player, but they are kind of these pieces that are the first step into that new repertoire. So for Ravel, I would definitely mention Juliet. The next composer that I want to mention is Frédéric Chopin. For Chopin, I think that in my beginner video, I mentioned some easier waltzes and nocturnes. Obviously, you can get into some harder waltzes and nocturnes, but also I would like to mention two pieces that are definitely also leaning towards the more advanced, harder side, but that I think are great gateways into getting into that repertoire. And this is the first scherzo. It's probably the easiest of his scherzos and definitely demanding, but I think doable for you to get into the future ones as well, especially if you're investing a good amount of practice time. And I would also like to mention his first or second ballade. The third and the fourth one are definitely the hardest ones, but first or second, I think, are the ones that you could get into as an intermediate student. Again, these two, the scherzo and the ballade, are if you are more of a serious, let's say, intermediate student that definitely practices every day and that has some time to invest into that. But if you do have that, then it's totally worth it because they are very rewarding, musically, incredibly beautiful, and pieces that will definitely get you to the next level, musically and technically. Speaking about Chopin, something very important that I would suggest to any intermediate student is start getting into the Chopin studies. As you maybe know, if you've been watching my videos, I've made several videos about different Chopin studies, and I would definitely recommend that you start practicing the Chopin studies as an intermediate student because you will probably have the technical skills that you need to start them. Don't be worried at all if you don't feel equipped to actually play through them. You don't need to do that, but you can start at a very slow tempo with the exercises. I will link all my Chopin study videos down below. I talked about the method, how I learned the Chopin studies, and it is a very long and gradual process. I started out playing the Chopin studies as an intermediate student at the age of 10 or 11, and I started out very slowly. It took me definitely 2 years before I played through Opus 10 number 1 at the final tempo, but this is what the process was all about. When I did play through it, I felt incredibly secure and I felt like I could play it in my sleep. So definitely start practicing the Chopin studies. Check out the exercises that I've mentioned. I've made videos on Opus 10 number 1, 2, Opus 10 number 9, I think, also several of the Opus 25 ones. So the technique musically incredibly beautiful and pieces that will definitely get you to the next level, musically and technically. Very rewarding, musically incredibly beautiful, and pieces that will definitely get you to the next level, musically and technically. Speaking about Chopin, something very important that I would suggest to any intermediate student is start getting into the Chopin studies. As you maybe know, if you've been watching my videos, I've made several videos about different Chopin studies, and I would definitely recommend that you start practicing the Chopin studies as an intermediate student because you will probably have the technical skills that you need to start them. Don't be worried at all if you don't feel equipped to actually play through them. You don't need to do that, but you can start at a very slow tempo with the exercises. I will link all my Chopin study videos down below. I talked about the method, how I learned the Chopin studies, and it is a very long and gradual process. I started out playing the Chopin studies as an intermediate student at the age of 10 or 11, and I started out very slowly. It took me definitely 2 years before I played through Opus 10 number 1 at the final tempo, but this is what the process was all about. When I did play through it, I felt incredibly secure and I felt like I could play it in my sleep. So definitely start practicing the Chopin studies. Check out the exercises that I've mentioned. I've made videos on Opus 10 number 1, 2, Opus 10 number 9, I think, also several of the Opus 25 ones. So check them out. I think this will really, really help you advance with your technique. The next piece that I want to mention is by Karl Maria von Weber, and it is called Invitation to Dance, Aufforderung zum Tanz. It is also very beautiful and I think the ideal intermediate piece, kind of exactly in the middle between beginner and advanced. So definitely something that you can master. It also has its virtuoso moments and a great piece to program in any piano recital, and a piece that will also build your technique and bring it to the next level. The next piece that I want to mention is by Genu Takash. This is a composer who is not played that often, but he has written one toccata that I played a lot when I was an intermediate student, and that was very effective. It sounds technically very hard, but it actually isn't. It's one of those pieces that are written so well and so pianistically that it is quite doable, although it sounds very hard. So if you're looking for a piece that sounds very impressive, but that you are pretty sure that you will actually be able to play, then play that. It is a little more on the modern side of things, and a great piece, for example, as a virtuoso piece in an exam or in a competition, or just for you to have fun with. And then finally, before I finish this video, I want to mention some piano concertos, because depending on what your plans are with the piano, if you're looking to do this professionally, or if you want to study it, or if you might want to just build a bigger repertoire, I would also like to mention some piano concertos. Of course, mostly intermediate students don't have the opportunity to perform with an orchestra, but you don't necessarily need an orchestra. You can do it with a string quartet if you have friends that are playing string instruments. You can do it with a play along recording. When I was 11 or 12 years old, I was practicing my first piano concertos and just playing them with recordings, with a CD playing in the background, and I was playing the piano solo part, and I felt like I was playing with an orchestra. So you can do anything, because piano concertos, of course, are incredible repertoire pieces, and of course pieces where you can really advance, because they are made for the pianist to shine on stage and to show everything, all his abilities and all his musicality and technical abilities. So I would recommend some easier piano concertos. For example, Mozart's 414 piano concerto, a shorter one, very cute, incredibly beautiful, such a musical gem, and something that you can definitely play at an intermediate level. The other piano concerto that I would recommend is Beethoven Concerto Number 1. It is, of course, not easy, but compared to his other ones, much easier. It was one of the first piano concertos that I played actually when I was 12 years old. So beautiful, so much genius is in that concerto, and I would definitely recommend getting into it, even if it's just to your knowledge of the composer and of the music. When I started out learning concerto, it wasn't because I had a date to play them with an orchestra on stage. It was just to get to know them. So I would definitely suggest to get to know piano concerto repertoire, even if you're not able to perform it, because it is such beautiful repertoire. And then the last concerto that I would mention is Mendelssohn Number 1. This is quite a virtuoso concerto, but again, written pretty pianistically. So it is definitely doable. You do have, don't be fooled, but still, I think also one that is very beautiful once you have mastered it. So this was my personal selection of intermediate piano pieces. I know that I by no means have covered everything. This is just my personal selection of what I kind of grew up playing and what I saw people in my class playing as intermediate piano level students. But please add anything that you played when you were at an intermediate level or that you're playing right now. If you are at an intermediate level, also if you are a piano teacher, please add your repertoire. I think this is always valuable and always helpful for students and teachers alike to see which pieces work well in order for students to advance. And let me know what you thought of the pieces that I mentioned, if you played any of them, if you found them helpful. And I'll see you again in the next video. Bye.
У самоката только свежий продукт. 15 минут, и мы уже тут.
Underneath the mistletoe, settle in my ear, little party.
Вот это, да, сильно говорит. Вот это и есть на самом деле. Ну, да, это не знаю, не знаю, это он видит. Честно говоря. В чем твоя проблема? Чипровой драйв делать, блядь. Если не повытрайте, то будет забить. Освежить. Ну, потому что как он бокса.